So that being said, we're going to go to item number 6B, discussion of zoning associated with a potential annexation request for residential use on Mariposa Drive, backing up to Sunday Circle with a legal description of Kinman subdivision lot 2BR 9.37 acres. So I would ask Anna to make some comments. Okay, let's start with Shelby. Let's do a roll call.
Cindy Scroggins.
Here.
Jeff Lawrence.
Here.
Daryl Whitworth.
Here.
Jim Giroux. Janice Menking.
Here.
Tom Musselman.
Here.
Holly Rickert.
Here.
Tim Dooley.
Here.
Steve Thomas.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum, so now we'll get started. Anna, you'll make your comments.
Yes. So this is, as you said, just a discussion item. This is a known project. Staff's been working with the developer for several months now on this tract of land. We're calling it the Mariposa development. It's 9 acres and off of Mariposa Drive at Sunday Circle. This is outside the city limits, currently in the ETJ, and the developer is looking to do some multifamily housing. So your role would be, if City Council decides to annex, would be to help determine the zoning, the proper zoning. The current comp plan calls for low density residential. So, you know, what would you consider for this location? Obviously, we will talk through some of the concerns of the neighborhood and constraints to the site, issues with the roadway, and if City Council were to annex, some things that they could put in the annexation agreement. So the applicants here, or potential applicant, to kind of talk to you just really about zoning and density. So Mr. Cole's here, I believe, to kind of go over their presentation. And this is a discussion, so you guys are free to ask lots of questions. Maybe that the neighborhood would want answered. So things that you would consider when this comes to you for a formal recommendation.
Thank you, Anna. Mr. Kroll, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. P&Z members, I've sat in your seat down in Dripping Springs for a number of years. So meetings like this are always fun. Thanks for allowing us. What we've got before us is, 9.3 acres, and we've kind of proffered this as an annexation agreement. The owners would love to do a straight R2 zoning, which allows for multifamily, 2 stories. And we've, you guys have seen this property come up before on different iterations. One that had, I think, a year and a half ago or so, that had a much higher density. R2 on this property would probably, right off the top of my head, I don't know, but it would be somewhere between maximum around 90 to 100 units is what could be put on there. I don't know exactly what the engineering would show once we do water quality and all that sort of stuff under the city zoning. But what we're really talking about is not asking for any variances, not asking for any special HUD development standards or anything like that, but to come in and be annexed under the city's R2 zoning and provide some multifamily units on that site. We talked originally when we started talking with city staff and the mayor about limiting and putting deed restrictions that no short-term rentals would be allowed within the property. I know you guys have the city's kind of taken care of that via ordinance here in the last 90 days or so. We're still totally fine with that. It's not our intention to try to do any short-term rental. We know that in our talks with members of the chamber and folks around, that there is a need for what I would call, we're not talking about affordable housing in any of the programs like that. We're just talking about workforce housing in a project that would deliver those rental units to the market that could increase the stock of actual long-term rental properties in the area. Right now, as you know, as Anna said, the project is outside the city limits. we can't do a project like this with, say 90 units without city water and wastewater. We would, obviously, that's why we're seeking annexation and an annexation agreement that would have R2. Um, the the benefit of that to the city is, we come in under the city's zoning. We're a known commodity. We do that. Our only alternative is to develop that property to some use outside the city limits and under, I guess, the county's development regulations. We don't necessarily know what that would be. We've kicked around a variety of things, but it would need to be a use that doesn't require significant water and wastewater services. So, I've used the analogy before. The owner has the property and they're paying taxes on it. So they've got to figure out to do something there that will make that a cash flowing property. And right now, the scrub mesquite that's out there isn't really generating a whole lot of revenue. And so we're really looking to do something on that site this year to go vertical with some project. And we hope, and working with you, with the council, with the neighbors, of trying to figure out something that works on that site that can be a benefit to the community at large. I know you guys are not, you have sometimes an unenviable position in that you have to balance the desires of a developer, the needs of the community writ large across a large geographic area, and also be cognizant and responsive to the neighbors and the folks that are around there. And we understand that. And certainly we've been going through this process with Garrett and Anna and the mayor for the last several months on trying to figure out what may or may not work. The owners spent quite a bit of money a year and a half ago or so coming up with what they thought they wanted to do there. And that wasn't what the community had in mind. And so before we spend a whole lot of money on another plan that we don't know whether will meet with the city's approval or y'all's approval, we thought it would be best to just kind of start this discussion in earnest with you guys about, you guys know what R2 is. It would be a straight up, here we go project under these terms, and this is a jumping off point for discussion. I'm happy to answer any questions, but more than anything else, I think I wanted to come to hear y'all's thoughts and what you're going to hear from the other community members tonight.
Thank you very much. Any of y'all have questions?
Is the property ag exempt at the time currently?
It is currently in ag. It's ag exempt at the moment. There's a question of ag exempt properties under 10 acres.
Okay.
And so, you're getting right at the edge of whether or not it can be it can maintain that ag exempt use.
Okay. Thank you.
Would y'all rather hear the public first? Okay. All right. We'll go with that. All right. We have several of y'all sign up here. Mr. Mark Johnson, would you like?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and City Planning Commission for the opportunity to come here tonight. And thank you to all these folks from Heritage Hill Country who showed up tonight and show their support. I appreciate it. My name is Mark Johnson. I'm president of our board of directors at Heritage Hills. And I actually put my date, I came a little late, put my name down last, so hopefully everybody else would have already said what I had to say. You're making me go first. So my initial thought was to say that basically, to quote the late great Yogi Berra, that this feels like deja vu all over again, because we've been here We were here in September of 22 in front of the city council in this room, then in front of your body the next night, to talk about what at that time was a HUD development, as Mr. Crow mentioned, and a R3 zoning, and frankly didn't work. And the council unanimously voted against that at that time. And the developer then withdrew that request from the city council for the annexation. Fast forward to April, and we got sort of last minute notice that the developer had gone to the county commissioner's report, along with something called, let me see if I get this right, Texas Housing Finance Public Facility Corporation, which was a funding source for the project. And they basically, I characterize it as a Hail Mary to try to do this project in the county with septic and without addressing the issues of Mariposa, which I think you're familiar with and probably hear more about tonight. But the developer did not appear at that meeting. The county commissioners rather quickly voted unanimously to dismiss their request. Thanks to Garrett, we got notice of this meeting at the last minute, and I appreciate Mr. Crow's remarks. I mean, he did bring a level of professionalism and cooperation that we have not seen before from the developer, which I appreciate. And he talked about working with communities, and we have always been willing to work with the developer to come up with a feasible solution. I mean, I will say we're not the bad guys. It's not our fault that the developer purchased a plot of land to do what he wanted to do, that basically was landlocked, because Mariposa, as it is now, does not allow access to very many vehicles. And we've been there before. That's sort of deja vu. Mr. Dance wanted to develop his peach orchard way back in 2005, and that was blocked because of Mariposa. 2017, Freedom came in, annexation was approved, rezoning was approved, but it was agreed that they would have to have access from Highway 87. And I think I can safely say that probably the primary objection to the developer's plans up to now has been the lack of access from Mariposa. Anybody who drives out there can see that it's very limited the number of cars you can allow safely in and out of that site. Now, part two, I don't know. I mean, what we saw some nice pictures of beautiful swimming pool, I must say. It was nice, like that. We had some nice language about housing for teachers, nurses, policemen, and hospitality workers. I don't know how that differs. Mr. Crow mentioned it was no longer, I guess, Section 8 type housing. I guess we'll hear more about that. And then what
Mr.
else?
Johnson, if you could wrap it up in 3 minutes is over.
Oh, I apologize.
That's okay.
I didn't expect to go first. Anyway, I think what I would say is that I haven't seen anything that addresses the issues of access to Mariposa. They mentioned that there's been a traffic study that would allow it. That assumes work by TxDOT that is not contemplated. That assumes connecting what they call Mariposa Drive out to 87. So I guess where I would leave it for the community is we'd like to be included in any process of trying to develop this project. But right now, I'd have to say that we would oppose the project in the current form without hearing more. So I appreciate your time. Sorry for going over the time. I appreciate it.
All right, now Alan Johnson.
Quite a few Johnsons in this world. Alan Johnson, Heritage Hill Country. Been here before. We've had a chance to talk about this before. I just wanted to mention to you, though, that so far as what we can tell off of the limited information that's been presented, nothing really has changed with regard to the safety of Mariposa, the intersection with 290, the transport, the necessary transportation. I only choose to point out that those parties responsible for the back gate of Freedom on Mariposa on out to 87 None of those parties have any intent of paving and completing that extension, unlike the representation in the traffic study. They have said that not only no, but hell no. And unless the city chooses to take on the expense of paving that extension from the end of Mariposa to 87, it's not going to happen. Beyond that, I just simply want to say that I live a block away from the border on Mariposa with this property. And when the statement is made that no one will be able to really see anything over there beyond those houses that are within a 60 to 80 foot distance, that's not true. The property owner right now rents parking space for trucks, heavy construction equipment trucks, from time to time. From a block away, I can see the tops of those trucks. So that's over our boundary fencing and seeing it because of the elevation of that property. I just simply want to say, this just feels like it's herpes. You think it's gone, it just keeps coming back. So I'll leave you with that thought.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, I have Jim Hambright. Okay, I'm sorry if I didn't get your last. And Bill Wagaman is next.
My name is Jim Hambright. I have property both at Mariposa and in Heritage Hills. Yeah, I just want to say one thing. You said that they were willing to work with us. They have never called us except one time. Last time I talked to Woody, he told me that if we did not become more pliable, he'd build a cement plant. That's not working with me. And he texted me the same thing. I can't. Oh yeah. Okay. Anyway, I talked to Woody.
Would you
he said that,
get behind the microphone, please? Thank you.
I do a lot of public speaking. Oh, okay. I'll start over then. I'm sorry. Woody has never, or they've never made any attempt to talk to us but one time, and I believe that was 24 hours before the deal. So no attempt has been made to make us part of this. The second thing is something that he said, that they're not interested in the STRs. If somebody reads what he said, it says right here that they will try at a later time to get that permission. So he's increasing the account of cars that'll be on that road. Now to the real thing that's the problem is the main road. In this paper, it says that there is nothing wrong with the road and that traffic will not be affected. Now, I'm old and slow, but I think the city, the county, and the state just spent a lot of money out 290 because people were getting killed in car wrecks leaving the wineries and that. We can't have an excess road, a road to get out because of the bridge. It's been a long-term talk, as I understand it, that they're going to have to build a new bridge, have to come out to college because they can't have 3 traffic lights in a row. So how can he say that? How can he say there is no problem with the road? Now then, I can answer that, I think. Back 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I was in my house, see somebody out by my fence, I go out and that. It's a lady, and she's putting this camera on my fence. And I said, well, what are you doing? She said, well, we're going to do the car count. And I said, oh, the car study for this. Yeah, she said, that's it. We're going to count the cars on Tuesday and Wednesday, or Wednesday and Thursday. I can't remember for sure which one. So 2 afternoons, they're going to count the cars. I said, well, that's kind of weird. So I guess maybe if you count just 2 afternoons a week and maybe count every 400th car on the highway on 290, maybe there isn't a problem. But there is a problem exiting that. Secondly, it just keeps on getting harder and harder to get information what they want to do. I don't have a clue. We thought there was 150 houses, something like that, or apartments and houses. The information is just not here to make us even aware of what's going on. But the road is definitely a problem. And then, as I understand it, I haven't seen it, but I have been told that they used the road going out of Frieden. Well, it doesn't exist, as I understand. It's a dirt road. So if you have a no exit and all this problem with 290, there is a problem with the road that needs to be adjusted. And last, I'll make this real quick. In all of this information here, it talks about how much does the police, the nurses, and all these people need apartments. I think truly the number of apartments that's going to be there is not going to affect one way or the other. But by building those apartments, I guarantee you our lifestyle will be ruined because of the noise, the traffic, and the general chaos that will be 2 foot from our back fence. All those people are important, but so are old people's lives. We worked hard to live here, and we deserve everything that these other people are getting. Old people's lives matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Bill Wagaman? Is that right? And then Bill Sad.
I'll just ask that what I wanted to say has already been said.
All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Sad, do you want to have anything?
My name is Bill Sad. Live within 200-foot impact area of this development. This is my 4th meeting on the same property. Some of the players keep changing. But the property and the issues with it are the same. Our issues with the owner of the property are serious and significant. I think Heritage Hill Country would undoubtedly oppose anything that goes here until we understand what it is and how it properly fits in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Gordon Bradford. And then after that, Katie Bradford. I'm sorry. You're going to pass? You too? All right. Jerry Casey. Jerry Casey or Bell Casey? Am I saying that right? Okay. Nick, is that Sluters or Stevers? Nick? Okay. And John, oh, you've got John. You spoke, Mr. Kroll. Is that the same, Mr. Kroll?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. That's everybody that signed up. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? I'll give one more chance. Okay. Would you please, come up here and give us your name, please?
Yes, my name is Reed Bass. I live in Mariposa, right downhill from this development. When it rains now, the water all comes down that hill through my yard. If they pave all that, where are they going to dispose of this water? Is there any plan for drainage? Where are they going to get city water? Where's the sewage going to go? Right to my house. I don't think we need to do this. Not only that, there's a creek. Everybody knows Barron's Creek runs right down below that. Where's it all going to go? Right to the creek. Just don't do it, please.
All right. Thank you all for your comments. All right. Now, y'all have any questions or more comments?
Yeah, so similar issues to what we saw on this before. The road's not improved. There's no plans in place to extend or improve the road. There will not be a light for TxDOT at that location, which makes ingress and egress on 290 very problematic. And there are flooding issues in that area and drainage issues in that area. So I'm not going to be very supportive on R2, particularly if it's an annexation that's just too dense for the area without the improvements. And we have no plans to make those improvements at this time. So that's more of a comment than a question, but that's my comment.
Nothing's really, in my view, nothing's really changed from the last two times that we had this discussion about this piece of property. The entrance is problematic and it will continue to be problematic until there is a second exit point. I don't see it being viable at this time, in my humble opinion. Everybody touts affordable housing, but then they use the term very loosely, but then they don't actually give any information as to what do they consider to be affordable. Okay, we're constantly flogging policemen, nurses, and teachers, and that is probably in line with the higher paid ones at the top and the lower paid ones at the bottom. When we start talking about affordable housing, let's have some numbers. Is $1,300 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment affordable? Not for a new teacher in the Fredericksburg Independent School District, I don't think, and it's surely not affordable for a service worker working anywhere on Main Street. So I'm not seeing anything new in this proposal. If the county wants to do it, that's fine. I don't think the city should.
Mr. Kroll, I appreciate you being here this evening. I appreciate your introduction to letting us know that you do have some appreciation for what we do up here, that you've been in this kind of situation before. So there is no reflection on you personally as an employee or a provider of service to your client. With that being said, on page 145 of our packet, which is the nice, pretty presentation that you folks have given us for Barron's Landing annexation. Under the executive summary, it says, bullet point number 2 says, developers have the option to develop either under Gillespie County or City of Fredericksburg jurisdictions. What you're asking us to do is to annex you. And we have a choice. We are not obligated under any form or fashion to annex this property. And it would be my recommendation. Apparently, we don't have anything other than a recommendation to be able to make. City Council has got to decide ultimately whether this piece of property is annexed. Is that correct, Mr. McKinney? Okay. If it was my recommendation in a public meeting, probably in the future, if we were asked, I would think that the city, from my perspective, should not annex this property. That would solve all of our problems up to this point, I think. Now, somebody said something about a cement plant. Somebody said something about storage units. We can't change that. Make sure that you folks understand that we don't have any jurisdiction beyond your fence. We can only deal with what is in the city limits, and this is not. But if this doesn't fit for the city limits, we can help you and we can avoid death on 290. Thank you.
Anyone else want to make any comments?
I do have one more. Page 134 of our packet. It's the actual annexation agreement itself. In the event that City Council decides to take this up and act on it, item 4, open space parkland. The developer is proposing that they would pay a fee in lieu of parkland dedication and park development fee at the rate of 50% of the fees. That should be 100%.
All right. Anna, Mick, anything else that we should be saying or doing tonight? That's just, it's discussion only and that's it?
Yes, ma'am, this is just for your information and to get input from us.
All right. Okay, very quick.
I can tell you that I think everybody here realizes, I think somebody over here once said, that we're not always gonna have capital. Someday it's gonna be gone. But I think if we had 10 houses, I read one thing the city said one time 9 duplexes. We know something will come. And we're old, but we realize that change is coming. And for them, if somebody would work with us and tell us what we're doing, this wouldn't be so bad. We know something's going to be built. We'd love to see that. But I appreciate y'all hearing our concerns and being active in this.
All right, thank you. Thank y'all for coming this evening. All right, y'all are welcome to stay. This is going to be a nice long meeting. All right, we are going to go ahead and get started on item number 4, action item 4A, request P 2330 by Jeff Berner with MDS Land Surveying to consider the preliminary plat review of the Chick-fil-A Fredericksburg subdivision located at US Highway 87 and Friendship Lane. Mr. Berner, are you here? Someone here to make that presentation? There you are.
Good evening, Commission. Matthias Halbert, 2600 Network Boulevard in Frisco, Texas. Not Jeff Berner,
Okay.
but I'm the civil engineer on this project that's obviously supporting this. It's a preliminary plat basically to create 3 commercial lots that are already zoned commercial, basically just to subdivide this. There's some access easements and some utility easements to support the infrastructure that's needed for the development on each of the 3 lots in the future. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that the commission might have.
All right, thank you. All right, Shelby, you going to make a presentation on this?
Thank you, Ms. Janice. Thank you, Matthias. As he mentioned, an application has been submitted for a preliminary plat that consists of 6.584 acres located at the corner of US Highway 87 South and Friendship Lane. The requested subdivision consists of 3 lots that will share access to Friendship Lane with an access easement that will double as a fire lane. And that is shown here on the plat with this dashed line that says FL. The subject property is the 6-acre vacant lot on the corner, and it's bordered by the Fairfield Inn and the McLean Ford. The property is zone C2 commercial. Lots 1 and 2 have frontage on Friendship Lane, and lot 3 has frontage on US 87 South, but will also have access with that access easement that doubles as the fire lane for the development on Friendship Lane. There are several easements proposed as part of the plat, including a street easement dedication for a deceleration lane, multiple utility easements, and an access easement, and of course the fire lane. Utilities are available to serve the property, and park dedication would be required at the full rate of $500 per new lot. Construction plans will be required and will include review of stormwater detention, drainage, and traffic. And with that, staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat, conditioned upon payment of parkland dedication fees, approval of civil construction plans, and the applicant would have to return for a final plat.
Thank you. Comments or questions from anyone?
One question is on roadways, is the Highway 87 frontage for Lot 3 is the Panhandle.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's this 50-foot section right here that you see.
And that it will be a shared access, or it will be an entrance into lot 3 from 87?
It's an exit only.
Yes, sir. Happy to answer that. It's we've secured a tech stop permit. It's actually going to be exit only. That's the access we were able to get from tech stop. They weren't allowing full access, so
Okay.
it
All
does
right.
provide another just alleviation of traffic congestion
Sure.
outside of everything being funneled through to Friendship
Okay.
Lane.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question. With what, I'm vice chairman of this group, and
Very well.
before we have this meeting, the chair and I talked to Anna about everything that's in the packet.
Of course.
And we have had some discussions about the entrance off of Friendship Lane, and this may not be the time to talk about this, I'm not sure, but I want to make, I need to know whether if we approve this, are we going to be able to go back and change the layout for the entrance into the queuing lanes? On one of these drawings, Anna, remember, you have to do a UE complete, and on the other one, further back in the packet, is what I'm going to call the bump out. Now, do we talk about that now, or we talk about it later?
I'll let staff voice their concern. I think this item is purely just a plat, but I would assume if there's adjustments that are needed to the preliminary plat as we go through the construction review process and the final plat, that those would capture any edits as we go through the design phase. Is that staff's interpretation as well?
I think you're right, but the point you're making is valid. So if you were to come up with a completely different requirement for the entrance for the drive-through, for example, because
do
this
it on
plat
the-
does have the access easements. So if you significantly change the layout, that could impact this. But as he said, it's something we could. Initially we had the plat second. Technically we need to create the lot before we
Okay.
look
All
at
right.
the lot. So
Okay.
it's a little chicken egg, but we can work with it.
Okay.
Where you're
Can I make a
going, Commissioner?
recommendation? Can we pause the discussion on this item, hold it, have the discussion on the site plan item, and then come back and vote on this item after we discuss and vote the site plan? Because seeing the detail better will potentially facilitate the approval on this. What do you?
Nick, can you help us decide how we need to proceed, please?
Well, we have a time limit to decide on the plat.
She's
Right, no, I'm
just talking
saying do
about
it all
this evening.
tonight.
I think she's
Do
asking
it
if we
tonight.
can
Just
delay
do
to
the
it later
discussion
on.
site plan before we make a vote on the
Yes,
on the plat tonight.
you could do that.
I just think it would help help address that question about where the driveways are going to be and all that if we do the site.
But we can't act on the site, on the conditional use permit until we approve the site plan.
That's right.
Okay.
They're actually separate items.
Right, I agree. Yeah,
Um,
but we could have the presentation and the
yeah,
staff
you can
report
have,
on
you
the,
can have them-
and not the
you can
public
have them
hearing.
together and not have them. Is this site plan set in stone? If we approve this site plan, does that set in stone the entrances?
Plat.
If we vote on it now, that's how I hear what Nick's saying. So if we put the two together, go ahead, Anna. I'm
Well,
sorry.
it's a preliminary plat.
The preliminary, it's not final plat.
Okay.
Yeah, but we all know what preliminary plats do. They're final.
Well, no, we would have opportunity to change it, make-
Yeah,
especially after construction plans.
Yeah.
start getting-
we've been good at that.
Chicken and egg.
Well,
Right.
can we just hold both discussions simultaneously and then you can call a vote separately in correct
Yes.
order?
So we will go now from. since
And
this
I'm
is not-
happy we can.
Please
If
stay
you
where
want
you are.
if you want to pause this and go through
just-
the other items
No,
and
no,
do it later
Just
too.
stay
we
right
just
there.
want you to
Yeah.
say-
Just
Stay
stay
right
right where
there.
you are. We got you.
We are
Yeah.
going to go,
Chairman, could we call it just a recess of this item and?
right,
Yeah.
we're going to recess this one and go to item number 5. Request Z2324 by John Scribner to consider a conditional use permit per section 3.210 of the zoning ordinance to operate a drive-through in a C2 zone area located at southeast corner of Friendship Lane and Highway 87 South. So the first item on that will be the presentation by the applicant. So if you'd like to tell us about the drive-through.
Sure thing. And I do have a couple slides here that we can look at and talk through together.
We knew you were ready.
Is that right?
At least run the cartoon.
It's that third one, I think, Shelby.
We'll go ahead and pull up the, what's in their packet. We'll get to that.
Could have brought samples to have while we were
Ah.
going through this.
One day we'll figure this technology stuff out.
A bucket of wings would be
Some light refreshments.
He brought his Sunday menu with him.
Oh.
There we go. Thank you, Shelby. So there's the elephant in the room, right? So really, we're presenting this conditional use permit site plan really simultaneously as what we're seeking approval on. So our site, Highway 87, Friendship Lane, that southeast corner. As you guys saw in the plat, it's currently just a 6.5 acre vacant lot with nothing on it. So that plat will support this site plan for the creation of 3 total lots with Chick-fil-A Chick-fil-A taking that hard corner at that southeast corner. Just for perspective, and you guys probably know this area better than I do, but that's kind of where we're at right here, right next to McLean Ford. There's a hotel on the far east side, car wash across the street, and then some, smaller just commercial lots kind of across Highway 87. But again, a vacant lot is what's out there here today. The nearest location to this area is Kerrville. You guys are probably aware of that. It's right about 30 miles away. So we're expecting this to draw a good amount of interest and popularity here in the city and ultimately be a commodity for a number of years to come. So the site plan here, I know we'll probably get into more detail on this going forward, but really what this site plan focuses on, it's roughly about a 5,000 square foot building. What we've got here is 76 parking spaces. The code requires 73, so we've just got a couple excess there. That puts us in a position if we need to remove a space for a landscape island, a fire hydrant, things like that. We've got some flexibility in that in order to still meet the code requirements. There is a dual drive-through lane that borders mainly the perimeter of the site here. That drive-through has capacity for 54 vehicles. So that is a healthy drive-through. We understand that. Really what the standards that we look for as we're doing new sites for Chick-fil-A is their rough numbers are they want about approximately 70 parking spaces and somewhere between 30 and 40 vehicle stacks in their drive-through. They're top-notch operation, one of the top operators in the country for fast food and QSR restaurants. They know they've studied this more than you guys probably want to know and hear about. They know exactly what they need to support their operations. So yes, there is a larger drive-through, but that's what's needed for their operation. There is an access easement that borders that kind of runs parallel to Friendship Drive. So that's what started to drive this layout that we're presenting to you guys here tonight. My group as the engineer of record here, we've done probably 30 different layouts on the site, just so you guys are aware. That's in order to try and meet city codes. That's to meet Chick-fil-A. We have a seller that's retaining one of the lots that's being platted, trying to make everybody happy. 3 parties. We've got TxDOT involved here, so we've been working on this site to get to this point for informal review with the city for at least the last 3-4 months, but at least another 6 months prior to that, if not more, just trying to get it to this stage. We have done a TIA as well to study the impacts here. The TIA does recommend a deceleration lane or turn lane on Friendship Drive. We're obviously conceding to that. We'll provide that with this development. That will support not only Chick-fil-A, but also the other lots that you guys saw on the plat. We do have a TxDOT permit. As I mentioned, as we talked about the platting, it is exit only. So you can see on this traffic exhibit that we put together, that'll be one way out to 87. So the only way into the site will be based on the 2 access points from Friendship Lane. They're already there today. So those are existing access points minus the addition of the deceleration lane, as I talked about. The challenge with these sites, and we do many of these sites across the state and other states as well every single year, is providing a drive-through stack that's that large and also providing that many parking spaces at 70 parking spaces. So when we start to look at this, 90 to 95% of the layouts that we create, if you guys have been in any other recently constructed sites, typically that drive-through is going to wrap around the perimeter of the site. The parking will be internal. That does a couple things. One, it keeps your drive-through traffic generally separate from your on-site parking, right? So that helps with, just customers, people walking across the drive aisles. That drive-through traffic tends to remain separate from all the other traffic on site here. The other element that does is really it creates, it just keeps the exit and the maneuvers separate as well. It brings the parking close to the front door, and it kind of keeps the access away from that foot traffic. So that's really what these sites tend up being. It's a big snake of a drive-through around the perimeter of the site. You backfill with your inside parking, and that provides a good customer experience for Chick-fil-A. So I know where we're going to go, and you guys maybe like a different concept plan that's in the TIA. We can talk about that a little bit later, but we are proposing public sidewalks on both street frontages. That's not a code requirement working with city staff, but it is a guideline provided in the corridor overlay. So we are continuing with that, providing sidewalks on both frontages. We do have public access from those public sidewalks to the building as well. Currently, we're only providing that on Highway 87. That's shown kind of towards the back of the building. What it does is it just provides a straight access connection straight to the main sidewalk at the building. Right, so we can provide access from Friendship Lane, but that's a much longer pedestrian pathway. It's also going to then be cutting through a lot of the parking fields and everything else. Where we have this located is at a natural stopping point within the drive-through already, based on a queuing analysis. So cars are already going to be stopped, just a lot safer. Cars aren't moving as fast, likely through the drive-through as they would be the regular parking lot as well. So pedestrian access is certainly something we're providing here. Now, in terms of the building location, really it's driven by some of those requirements and parking and stacking and things of that nature. The back of house, this is a different prototype than we typically see on these sites. Typically on that western facade that faces Highway 87, that's all your electrical boxes, that's all your gas meters, it's all those utilities that service this building. This is a prototype that actually has all that on the south side. So it's not going to be facing 87. So that is something as well that we took into account. Just other standard operating procedures here for Chick-fil-A. It will have their typical American flagpole in the front of the store location. They'll have an indoor playground at this location, so that will be inside the facility. Then there's both indoor and outdoor seating as well. You can see the location of the patio. Again, that's strategic towards 87. We could put it on the east side of the building, but it's not going to provide that visual appeal with umbrellas and things like that. Again, it's also kind of catered towards that pedestrian foot traffic that's already happening in that area. I know staff voiced a concern of mobile order parking, things like that. Obviously, in the post-COVID world, with the increase of Uber Eats and the other ones, I'm blanking on those names, there's obviously a demand for those as well. Typically, it's up to the operator, but they do typically have a couple parking spaces that are generally by the front door. So cars can come in, they can run in, they're out in 5-10 seconds, so easy access in and out. They typically have glazing on that door, so it's not as inviting as the main entry, and it's catered towards those mobile order pickups, so they can go in and out right to those parking spaces. What else we got here? It's in compliance with the overlay standards, building height, impervious coverage, other zoning related items. There is landscaping that's provided as well. There's a landscaping plan, I believe, that's in your packet that staff helped review, including street trees and things of that nature all throughout the site. So that's just kind of what's being provided to you guys here today. If you can go back one, sorry. So this traffic exhibit, so I know traffic is going to be a topic of conversation here. As I mentioned, we did provide a traffic impact analysis for this site. TxDOT reviewed that. The city engineer also reviewed that. The city engineer's comments were in line with, they agreed with the recommendations for the decel lane. That's the only improvement that would be necessary, provided that also TxDOT approved that, which we do have the TxDOT permit as well at this point. So in terms of this drive-through, one of the important things is we have a 54 vehicle stacking drive-through on this location. I mentioned Chick-fil-A standard is about 30 to 40. That's their ideal and preferred location. I think just how this laid out and with the access easement that's in that area, it stretched this out a little bit further. So I understand if there's concern from the drive-through bleeding out into Friendship Lane. But on this plan, you can see the red line cursor, but this line right here is that high end of that 40. That's where that item falls. So there's still room. There's roughly about 140 to 150 feet of excess queuing in that drive-through should they experience busy times, should there be any congestion in that area. And then there's still about 50 feet back to the intersection there at that driveway location of Friendship Lane. So I understand it looks close on this plan, but there's a built-in buffer that's already included in that drive-through to kind of help with that. Now, the other piece here is, in working with staff, they brought up the concern of the drive-through exit and how that's going to function into the drives there. So one thing, there it is dual lane. We understand that. The next slide will actually show what that typical alignment looks like. It'll be painted with a stop bar. It'll painted stop. There'll be double stop signs and things like that to obviously control traffic in that area. But the other important thing is you can see that dimension there. It's about 90 feet. That's from the meal pickup area to that location. That 90 feet provides roughly 8 total vehicles that can stack in that after they pick up their meal. If there is congestion in that area, things of that nature, there's still an excess, capacity there for 8 vehicles to queue up if it needs. I don't anticipate Chick-fil-A getting to that point, right? Again, they're one of the top operator for this type of establishment in the country. And when it comes down to it, if that's going to stack up and it's going to prevent cars from getting their food and start backing up their drive-through, they're going to figure that out. They're not going to allow that, right? They want to get cars in and out, and they'll be funneling those through. Some locations even have just a staff member that's maybe even out there directing traffic should there be a congestion issue in that area. So that's just something to work through there. Staff also did bring up a concern of some of the parking spaces. There's roughly 12 parking spaces on the east side of the site that border that shared access drive. Now, as we talked about on the plat, that shared access drive will support the additional lots that are being created here. We understand that. So, that is a 20-foot or 28-foot wide drive, which exceeds the city's minimum requirement. So there is a couple extra feet in there to allow hopefully a safer maneuver. Those parking spaces are also not the closest to the front door. So these buildings can have anywhere from 20 to 30 employees on shift at a time during peak hours. So with that in mind, if we need to designate these as employee parking spaces, it's not someone that's going to be coming in and going every 15 minutes. It's someone that's going to be there for several hours at a time. That helps the safe maneuver and helps alleviate any concerns from this commission. We're happy to consider that accommodation. The other element is just, again, leaving the drive-through. We understand that the access out to 87 is exit only. You can see that that's a pretty funky shape on that landscape island leaving the drive-through. That's intentional. We've got different models that we can run from truck turns to a regular sedan, and we can model what those turning maneuvers look like. So we've made sure there's additional striping in that area. We've widened that landscape island in order to create a greater turning radius. So if there is a car leaving the drive-through that wants to do a U-turn and head out through the 87 egress point, that's certainly something that we've taken into consideration. This design reflects. Next slide, please.
Okay.
And then this is what that drive-through exit typically looks like. It's going to have double stop signs. This is a site that was just recently constructed. It doesn't actually have the striping on the pavement yet, but there would be a stop bar as well on the pavement there that reflects that as well. So drivers leaving that area, and then this would be where we have that excess of 8 stacking vehicles after they receive their meals. And then the next slide we have is just the building elevations. So you guys have these in your packet, but at the end of the day, this is an enhancement from what the typical prototype is. And I just want you guys to understand that there is natural limestone that's more appropriate for this hill country region. That's all intentional there. They've increased the glazing and items like that too. There's more masonry than that typical prototype has. That's all to try and comply with those overlay guidelines in place. There's aluminum canopies, no bright colors outside of the signage. I think that's certainly a win for the city and just having a good looking building there. It's not that the whole building is red or anything egregious like that, right? There's parapets to screen the mechanical equipment, all that as well that you can see in these elevations. So with that, I'll certainly stick around for questions, but the site is consistent with the zoning regulations. You guys have a narrative. I'm not sure if you read every item. It's pretty lengthy on the overlay standards, but really trying to comply with those guidelines in every way that's feasible here. The design exceeds Chick-fil-A's requirements. Again, this is a top operator across the entire country that does not take, their design standards lightly, and we're still exceeding those in those conditions. So that's more of a bode to you guys to know that you're getting a top-notch product here. You guys have higher standards than a lot of other cities. That's good. You guys should like that, and you can know that you're getting a good product here that's coming out of it. Again, the TIA was performed and reviewed, and we have the tech stop permit. That's obviously good. And then just in the long term, I mean, this is a staple tenant that's going to be here for a long time to come, right? It's not going to be something that flips over in 2 years and 3 years. This is something that's going to be here for a long time, be a real good tax revenue, item for the city here as well. I know public notices were issued. We didn't receive any objections. I know there's some folks that are still here, so we might hear from them. But with all that being said, I think we just respectfully ask you guys support on this application. We look forward to working with city staff on this and hopefully making this a reality and bringing this to the city of Fredericksburg. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
All right, thank you very much.
I'm glad you guys didn't give me 3 minutes. So.
All right. Anna, you want to make
Thank
some
you,
comments?
Matthias. Yeah, so I think you covered most of it, but this is a conditional use permit application. So the C2 allows the fast food restaurant. It's the CUP that's required for the drive-through. So the proposed development would include the 5,300 square foot building and provide 75 parking spaces for the fast food restaurant. TxDOT has granted a one-way or one right-out only exit onto Highway 87. That means no entrance from 87, and those exiting 87 will only be allowed to go north. Currently, there is not a turn lane in front of proposed entrance on Friendship Lane. Visitors leaving the site southbound on 87 or west on Friendship will have the most difficult time exiting this property, especially during peak hours. So the corners of busy intersections are the best locations for visibility of the business, but can cause a negative impact for through traffic. Chick-fil-A is one of the most successful quick service restaurants, drive-through restaurants in the country, and locations across the country have created traffic issues when drive-through facilities are not adequately designed to handle the demand. Drive-throughs across the country are starting to adapt to demand changes since COVID, including creating a dedicated lane for digital orders. Proposed drive-through has 2 full-service lanes and a traffic impact analysis. The TIA has been provided. However, the site plan associated with the TIA has a different layout for the entrance to the drive-through, different location of menu board, and different building orientation. The site plan in the TIA, page 50, was not reviewed by staff. For that layout, we reviewed the site plan submitted for review. But in looking at it, it does appear that layout and site plan has some advantages compared to the final version. I think Matthias did a good job explaining kind of how many iterations they went through and why they landed where they did. But I think for our conversation, kind of looking at those 2 different site plans, I think there's definitely some strong points to the TIA site plan for entry corridor compliance and safety and stacking. Well, I think stacking is probably the biggest benefit to this proposed site layout. 54 is significant enough. So that's the double. So we're talking 20, Matthias, in each lane?
Yeah, it'd be after that. So 26, 20,
okay.
26 each lane.
Each lane. So it is C2 zoning. Building coverage is only 7%. The impervious coverage is at 71% with a maximum allowed of 80. I did note that the curb on the south side of the property appears to extend beyond the property line and into the cross-access easement. The height is within keeping for the zoning. Parking, they're providing 75 spaces, 3 spaces per 100 square feet of customer service and dining area is required. Chick-fil-A usually provides 70 spots. The drive-through stacking, as he described, this is a double drive-through lane, so if any of you that have visited a local nearby Chick-fil-A, the closest are the Rim and Kerrville, and both of those have double that then dive into a single pickup lane. So this is different, that it's double all the way through. And they are showing 2 aisles that are 10 feet wide each with 3 feet striping in between and 20-foot radius at the curves. The menu boards show 2 menu boards, approximately 8 feet tall and 6 feet wide. We didn't really look at those, Matthias. Are those fully digital menu boards with integrated speakers?
They are electronic in that sense of having a speaker and everything else, but I don't believe that the menu board itself is electronic. I believe it's not like a TV screen with the menu items. If that makes sense.
Yes. Okay. Entry corridor. So we're looking at building materials, color, and landscaping have been met. The location of the building and parking in the site plan shown, I would say, have not been met because of the orientation and the placement of the parking. Again, looking at the site plan and the TIA, I think it was a better fit for the entry corridor. Landscaping and screening, trees were not provided along the eastern property line in this version, again, because of that parking backing out into the shared access easement. The refuse, the site plan has been updated to locate the trash to the southeastern corner of the lot, but I did note that the landscaping plan still shows it in front of the building, as you see here on the screen. So staff definitely recommends that it be at the southeast location. Public hearing notices were sent out. We didn't receive any comments against. We did get one email from a neighboring property owner in support. Let's see. So staff recommends approval with enhancements to pedestrian safety, traffic flow that reduces conflicts between queued vehicles and traffic on adjacent lots and streets. More information will be required to ensure that site lighting is compliant with overall limits. As drive-through businesses models change, the site should be flexible to accommodate by online pickup in-store visitors. The drive-through is not able to meet several of the site building placement guidelines for entry corridor because of the high number of parking spots and extra long double lane drive-through lane that encircles the lot on 3 sides. The extensive double lane drive-through should mitigate traffic backing up onto Friendship Lane. The building materials and colors are appropriate for the entry corridor. The pedestrian-only access is off of 87 and not on Friendship Lane. But given the number of approved residential projects on Friendship Lane, staff suggests more thought be given to a pedestrian and bicycle access. Each drive-through entrance and exit should be at least 50 feet from an intersection of public right-of-way, measured at the closest intersecting curb, and at least 25 feet from curb cut on adjacent property, unless the drive-through pull-out spaces are provided. The site plan on the TIA appears to meet this recommendation.
All right, thank you. So a lot of the things that you addressed are really more like a site plan review, but all we're supposed to be addressing tonight is approving the conditional use permit for the drive-through. Is that correct?
But as part of the conditional use permit, we can create whatever conditions we want.
Correct.
So taking the whole site plan into account, because the drive-through is a key element of the site.
Right, for the drive, but not the other parts of the site plan.
So we're reviewing site plan entry corridor all as part of the conditional use permit.
Okay, because it just says to operate a drive-through on the actual item here. So are we looking at the entire site plan or just the drive-through part?
All of it.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions on the curbside parking. Where would that end up being located? The curbside pickup parking?
Yes, ma'am. Can you guys see the screen?
Would that be adjacent to the ADA parking?
Yes. It would likely be just to the west of those ADA parking spaces.
Okay.
That's where that secondary entrance is located.
Okay.
Would be just to the left of there.
Okay, and on the building itself, on the design of the building, it's very boxy. I mean, it just looks like a standard box. I would really prefer to see some gabling on the parapets to give them a gabled edge to break up that box look on it. I've seen other models of yours where the gables are the parapets are gabled where the entrances are to distinguish the entrances from the rest of the building. So we went and pulled some examples of Chick-fil-A's that have been done with a gable over the entrance to break up that box look. And I would recommend that we approve it with that as a stipulation that they add a gable parapet over the entrances to break that box up.
Can over there.
Over there?
Yeah, that one looks like it's on, but okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, to distinguish, at least to distinguish the entrance areas with a gabled parapet. It's not saying a full roof, but a gabled parapet over that
Okay.
entrance sections to break that line up on the top.
Okay.
You had talked about the employee parking, and I would recommend that we require the employee parking be designated along the shared drive so that those 12 spaces along the shared drive are designated employee parking on it.
Sure.
Those are 3 things I had. The other one is sidewalk from Friendship Lane. You talked about the sidewalk access, pedestrian access from 87. I can see why you would say it's much safer because it's beyond the menu board.
Correct.
Is there any location along Friendship Lane that you would be willing to put in a pedestrian access?
I think, to be honest with you, I think the challenge is going to be if, based on that traffic exhibit, right, there's a point where it's probably going to be excess stacking that's not typically used. And so I think the challenge is there. That's where you're probably going to get a little bit higher speeds, people coming into the drive-through.
Correct.
So as an engineer, I've got to take an oath to keep the public safe. And I think it's going to be challenging that area, knowing that there's going to be higher speeds in order to provide a safe transaction through that area.
So is there a way to provide signage along Friendship Lane that directs people to where the pedestrian access is on 87? Because otherwise
we can probably
have people randomly cutting through.
Yeah, you've seen like directional signage in the past that'll say like drive through this way or ATM over here.
Yeah.
We can probably put something along the drive through that says pedestrian access up ahead. I think that's something we can certainly work with you on. Okay,
I think we should require some directional signage for safety reasons. The kids are going to be coming down Friendship from all that development is east of this. I mean, there's 500 doors going in just east of this, and those kids are going to be coming down to Chick-fil-A. And
I know you guys are aware. I saw the Lennard development driving through there earlier, but past the hotel, there is no public sidewalk for a good stretch. So it will be a little bit of time, and I know it's coming. But yeah, that is something I picked up on earlier just driving by. Is there is a large gap in that right now, but yeah, understood. We can accommodate the directional signage for the pedestrian crossing
to slow down the speed of the traffic in the pickup lane. Could we put a speed bump in there?
I don't know that it's necessary to speed bump the pickup lane. It's just if I understand what he's saying. The only really logical place to put the pedestrian access is beyond the menu board where they're stopped.
Okay, but the issue then we're going to ask people that are walking down Friendship Lane to go around the corner to 87 to enter the
pedestrian access.
Okay. You think they're going to do that? They're going to walk.
Yeah, they're going to go to that blank lot and walk across the employee parking lot.
The other element is the drive-through is certainly a portion of that from Friendship crossing the drive-through, but you're also crossing an additional 2 or 3 other internal drive aisles. The 87 axis crosses the drive-through one time in a natural stopping current. So I get your point of slowing down speeds in the drive-through, but you've got to do that at every single element across all the way to get down to the building sidewalk. It's just from a distance standpoint, it's probably not that much further to walk to go around 87 and you're right at the building front door versus cutting through the site. But I understand your point as well.
All right, Anna, let's talk about the design on their page 50, our page 110. Particularly on page 111. Discussion I had with staff has to do with that bump out that comes off of Friendship Lane.
Correct.
Actually forces people to come in off the roadway and go around that bump out to get into the queue lane, where the other one that you've shown in the beginning basically almost has just a U. Is that correct? I mean, you can literally come in and get in the queuing lane
Mhm.
with just a UE.
Yeah, that's true.
And has there been any consideration, or is there any problem with trying to put that bump out in there? And I need to ask Evan over here because I understand too that we've got a decel lane in there somewhere, and you know how would a decel lane work if we're trying to bump them onto the site before they get into the queue lane? Are you gonna have to? Is that going to have an effect on the decel lane? You understand my point?
Yes, yeah, and excuse my voice. But basically what they would have to do as part of their design process, showing the deceleration lane and all the planning that's on site. They actually, traffic engineers do have a program. They can analyze that for any type of vehicle that exists. So they would go through that process. They would show the radiuses on for those vehicles.
Okay. I just didn't want to cause a problem with something that we would like to change, but then it has a domino effect on other things.
Yeah,
So what is the answer? I'm sorry.
Well, the one thing I like about your new layout over the old layout is the old layout was assuming that vehicles were actually going to stack in the parking lot to get into the queue.
Any
your
access
new
queuing would do
design,
that.
in your new design, they're totally separated from the parking lot, so you don't have cars trying to get in the queue using up and interfering with cars that are trying to park.
Yeah.
So your new one, from an internal standpoint, is to me a safety improvement.
It does help funnel that drive-through traffic
Away.
straight into the drive-through and keep them separate from the on-site
Yeah,
parking.
because the one at the rim in San Antonio, the designated lane is off to one side, but everybody queues up in the parking
Right.
Yeah, they don't use the designated lane.
And the other thing too, in talking with staff on this is this layout. Yes, the building is a little bit closer to Highway 87. It's parallel to 87. I understand that. There's still going to be a drive-through along 87.
Sure.
And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. That drive-through wants to wrap around the perimeter of the site. But this layout here that you guys have on your screens, this also dumps that drive-through traffic straight right out at the 87 exit. And so usually anytime we can get those exits away from the exit, the access points, it usually helps just alleviate some of that congestion as well. So that's one of the main reasons I think we strayed away from this is dumping everybody out right there with other oncoming traffic. Just from a safety and traffic standpoint, we thought that the current plan that's being presented was a little bit safer. So, to Evan's point too, we do have the traffic engineer that prepared the TIA. They did do, you have to correct me if I'm botching the wording, but an internal circulation or internal queuing plan. If we need to provide an updated version of that, we submit our construction drawings. We're happy to provide a revised version of that. That would reflect the current layout as well.
So we'll say another advantage of this layout actually would help that pedestrian access we're talking about because you've got this curb, right? The deep curve. So there's a pedestrian, a Frogger zone, if you will, for the pedestrian, and it separates the access from the parking. So that's safer for everybody else that's not going to Chick-fil-A and is just, going to one of the other two sites. Okay. So I don't know if there's a hybrid, obviously if you're flipping the building in the other design, but keeping some of these elements to allow people to come in. So they're not making that immediate right into the drive-through lane and providing some separation between Chick-fil-A and the rest of the development.
Did y'all consider flipping this north-south? The new layout?
Yes, but I think that gets the building even further away from the street frontage, which probably contradicts the 87.
It looks like it would push the building up against Friendship. It would flip it to be where the building would be up against Friendship more so. Not that layout, the new layout. So if you took the new layout, the building's on the south side.
Put the building on the east side, you're saying?
No, just flip it where the building's, flip the whole thing over where the building's on the north side.
Yeah, the challenge there is the drive-throughs on the passenger side.
Ah.
Yeah.
Never mind.
So no, it's
They can yell.
we
They can yell.
Yeah.
we've all done it. It's
Yeah.
we've all put together plans like that at times
Yeah.
too. It's okay.
Too bad.
The
It's just a
challenge
thought.
the challenge there is that
Yep.
if you were to keep it on that driver's side, then your drive-through stacking is
Yeah.
15 cars, and
Yeah.
I don't see that
Won't
being
work.
adequate. But love the creativity.
You know, you could feed that second pedestrian way just through the curbing where the employee parking is going to go. If you come in from the north through that curb, yes, you're still cutting across the drive-through lanes, but you're doing it at the very beginning. I don't know if that helps or not, or if you're still in a speed zone. May still be too speedy.
I guess the truth be known, if somebody's going to walk down
They're gonna
there,
walk.
they're going to
They're just
find
gonna cut across and walk. They're gonna
wherever
walk
they
over
need
it.
to get there.
Yeah.
Almost like jaywalk.
You should know.
Yes.
There's an internal joke about that. Sorry.
It's okay. It's on the record now. Yeah.
All right, I have another couple of questions, and this is probably going to be maybe a text doc question. How big is that wall going to be on that right in and right out?
The wall.
The wall to keep people from coming in on
87.
87 and taking the right into
Yep.
the right in, right out.
So, to answer your question, no wall. I think you
think
knew.
so,
I think
but-
you knew that.
Enlighten me.
Yeah, I mean there'll be signage that's posted before that, and then that design itself it has a natural turning radius, so someone would have to literally jump over that curb and do that. It'd have to be very intentional, and unfortunately, it's really tough to design for that type of deterrence. But there'll be signage right before there. There's also overhead electric and overhead utility lines in that area. So there's a series of utility poles that goes there along that drive too. That should also just be a natural deterrent, at least provide some visibility that hey, I can't go through there. But there'll be signage as well as a natural turning maneuver to direct people north onto 87.
Have you been to Burger King in Fredericksburg by the hospital?
I have not. No.
Well, let me take you to a right in, right out over there and show you all the black tire marks on all of that island stuff that we have for that designated right in, right out.
Is it a pork chop on that drive?
It's a mess.
Yes,
People are going to drive over it. I don't care what.
And sometimes what they do, that's the trucks and stuff will still use those sometimes too. But this will be the truck is not going to be able to get in on that 87.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
All right, next question. And this is after discussion with staff, so
Sure.
I'm not making this up. The TIA that you folks have presented for this site are basically site specific, are they not? In that that TIA does not take into consideration any other further development anywhere close to this location.
So the TIA accounts for this Chick-fil-A.
Correct.
There's
Anything else?
there's a concept plan for lot 3 on the south for
Yes.
a 40,000 square foot retail building, I believe.
Yeah,
That's
but-
accounted for. And it also accounts for 2 or 3 more commercial developments on lot 2. So that TIA accounts for everything that's presented in that plat application for the entire 6.5 acres.
But doesn't one of those say proposed second drive-through restaurant?
I believe it does account for that, assuming that that's probably the highest and intense use in terms of traffic. So it should be conservative in that nature versus just a general retail building. It's probably not going to generate as much traffic. So that TIA should be catered towards the highest intense uses. Is that accurate, Evan?
Yes. Yeah, just to make that distinction, this doesn't necessarily approve another drive-through on that other lot. That was just an assumption that they made in their TIA. That would be an intense use for that lot. So it's, like you were saying, a very conservative assumption for the site, our TIA.
I think one thing that we have to consider is that we have the potential for 3 drive-throughs in this immediate vicinity because Mr. Barron is going to have a drive-through across the street.
That's correct. But any development on that lot 3, if they were requesting a drive-through,
You mean on lot 2?
Yeah.
Lot
Well,
2. Lot 2.
correct me if I'm wrong, but from discussions with city staff, when that happens, if it does, then is that not going to create a left turn lane at that intersection?
On Friendship,
Yeah, no, yes, on Friendship,
in terms of a dedicated left turn lane
Yes.
into this development.
yes.
Evan, I'll defer to you on that one, and if there's any city plans for anything of that sort.
No, we don't have any plans for that kind of improvement. According to this impact analysis, it does not trigger that improvement. So for those turning movements for 40-mile-per-hour roadway, would have to exceed 60 vehicles per hour. This mostly ends up in the 40 vehicles per hour.
Okay. Now, is that just for this, or does that include the stuff that's going to be on the other lot?
Yeah, the analysis includes all
All of-
6.5
all-
acres of
On
development.
that
Yes, sir.
All right.
And I believe to your question there, Commissioner, is Evan, I believe one of your conditional comments too was if there's changes to the site plan that you would want to see a revised TIA. So while yes, maybe there are other fast food restaurants including that TIA to include the most intensive use and traffic demand, if that does change, then the city would want to see a revised TIA that would reflect what's actually being presented and developed.
Right, and I understand but what I guess what I'm bringing up for discussion that is probably above and beyond the discussion for Chick-fil-A is the need for a turn lane on Friendship Lane because of the increasing traffic that not only this development but many other developments.
Sure.
So
understood. That would be a
something
part of that TIA analysis. And typically, I know the gentleman stated something earlier about Tuesday and Wednesday, but it's usually AM and PM weekday and weekend is what's usually included in those TIAs to make sure they capture the wider region. So just making sure that's clear.
So the Evan, in the site plan, there is a closer entrance to Friendship and 87 that is going to be shut off, and then the second entrance going east that's going to be both. If you're coming out, you can go left and you can go right.
Correct.
Okay. Is there enough room there to get for the left turn? Because this is where I'm getting kind of it's the public safety issue. There is the people that are going out of the parking lot that are going to go west are going to be crossing two lanes of eastbound traffic. Okay, and of course we've got the issue of the people that are going east to west that want to go in are going to be crossing 2 lanes of traffic.
And that was approved with these 2 existing drives for the one here at Fairfield and the one here, similar to the car wash across the street. So their exit only drive lines up with the one that's going away. So this development decided to just get rid of that completely, since it would have been restricted access. And then this one here in the middle, they're keeping, also is a full access drive, similar to the car wash on the north side. So that's keeping all that consistent. It's keeping all those turn movements in the same place. They're not creating an offset where you kind of get some more of those conflicts.
Right.
They are going across 2 lanes of traffic, but that is the nature of Friendship Lane.
That's why we need a turn lane.
Exactly.
Eric, would you please comment?
Well, Evan hinted at it, and Matthias has mentioned it too. But so the current TIA is based on some assumptions for the full development of the site. So tonight we're contemplating the development of Chick-fil-A. The CUP is for the drive-through at Chick-fil-A. As the site continues to develop, if issues arise with future development, that's where we would have continued discussion with the board or with the commission about potential improvements that could be made. To respond to Mr. Musselman, we are in discussions with TxDOT about overall improvements to Friendship Lane. As you're aware, with Friendship Oaks, they are putting in turn lanes for the extension of Creek Street. So that is a possibility in the future. It doesn't necessarily affect this particular development.
And I'll just make one more comment about the TIA. So it includes the Chick-fil-A, the hardware store,
And the other.
the future potential development of that lot, as well as the Fairfield land. So they do take into account Fairfield, as well as when they're projecting out all the trips. They say this project will be complete in 25 and 26. They look at the traffic counts on 87, 290, Friendship Lane. And they look at the historical increase in the trips on those roadways. And for that analysis period, they also bump those up for the projected completion of their project. So when you're looking at the build out condition in the TIA, they're also bumping up that base kind of pass by traffic that's just occurring in the town as well. So
Does this one project out? Sometimes it goes out to 2030 or 2040. Do you guys require anything like that?
it was just for the
completion.
And so the issue that I think that you've done a great job with the explaining how the traffic is going. We almost need, I think it has nothing to do with, I guess, this proposal, but we actually need to have a 5,000 foot view of the TIA for Friendship, because when we did the TIA for like Fairfield, there was no Seco, there was no climbing wall, there was no Friendship Oaks, there was no Bercy development, and we've got all these developments that are on the books right now. That, and I talked to Garrett about this. Have we ever taken all the TIAs and put them together to get some idea of how much traffic we're going to have on Friendship Lane? Do we know how much traffic we have on Friendship Lane now, and what our projections are based upon the development that we have approved in on Friendship right now? And I know that has nothing to do with this, but I think that is from a policy standpoint, this is something that we really need to do, because Friendship is the most traveled street in our city right now, because it's got the most developable land.
Garrett, do we have a plan to do an update to our transportation plan anytime soon?
So again, we've got the roadway extension projects. Those are the highest priority at this point. The transportation master plan was done in 2016. So you'd prefer to do that before 10 years. So
almost 10
yes,
years old.
in the coming years,
that would
we'll
be
need to
something
update.
that for probably 2025 we start the process of.
Yeah. So the updated thoroughfare plan and the comp plan, we'll closely look at that and probably utilize that as the basis for an updated transportation master plan.
But that would be the most appropriate time to take a look at it.
It's very similar to detention, drainage. Yep. A lot of times each development looks at their drainage, so we need to take a look at the regional
and
master drainage plan.
Master drainage and master transit.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Anybody else have any other comments or questions on this one? All right. So are y'all comfortable going back to item 4A? Yes. And looking at the plat? All right. We're gonna take a pause on item 5D. We've done item D1 and D2. We're now going to go to item 4A and look at the site plan again. So based upon these discussions, Tim, are your concerns on the site plan taken? Do you have any concerns on the site plan now, or do you want to make any changes?
I'm still not sure whether the one on page 50 is what we want, and whether we're voting on that now, or whether we vote on this and then change it to this.
We have to vote on the site plan first.
Then I'm going to approve it as it is at this point.
Preliminary plat.
Preliminary
plat. Right. I'll second that.
Staff recommendation.
I'll just make one comment real quick.
Okay.
So on the site plan, it shows the pedestrian access to sidewalks, public sidewalks on site. It's not actually shown in the preliminary plat.
So the plat needs to be updated for
That would
sidewalks.
just be one additional condition.
We're
Okay,
fully in
add
support
that.
of that. No objection
Shelby,
to that.
we'll add that to our conditions.
All right, so I have a motion by Tim and a second by Tom. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Preliminary plats approved. All right, then we will go back to item 5D, which is the request Z 2324. We've had the presentation by the applicant. We've had the staff report. I would now entertain a motion to open the public hearing on this item. Motion by Tim, second by Daryl. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Is there anyone here that would like to make comments on this public hearing for the conditional use permit for the drive-through
The Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A?
I move we go out of public hearing back into regular session.
A motion by Tim, and second by Daryl. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, is anyone ready to, we'll go to action item D4, take action on the conditional use permit. Anybody having more discussion? You're ready to take action.
We can figure out all the changes we've made.
I'll put one together.
Okay.
I recommend we approve request C2324 with the following conditions: that all of the parking on the shared drive is designated as employee parking only, that we require a minimum number of 3 curbside pickup parking spaces in front of the building, that we add gabled parapets above all of the entrances to the building to break up the roof line, and that they provide directional signage to where the pedestrian parking exists.
All right, I have a motion by Polly. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tim. Any other discussion on that? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, thank you.
Thank
sir.
you very much.
All right, do y'all need a break real quick before we go on to other items?
Don't mind if we take a quick break?
Very quick. 5-minute break.
Yep.
5 minutes.
Are you talking?
Guys, thank you. I don't know. I make please.
Yeah. You don't like the gable?
For my fast food, that was probably the most tasteful first round. Look, let's go. Look what you're going to see when you go past it. First celebration. Here, see if they three blocks. I know it's interesting that they said they had run 30 different layouts. Absolutely not. Well, at least there's one person watching us tonight. I'm getting texts from people like somebody's watching online.
Tom, let's go.
Somebody's watching and sending me messages.
All right, we are going back into session. We're going to go to item number 4B, request P 2332 by Carol Bryla to consider the final plat review of the Prospect Edition Phase 2 located at Friendship Lane and Homing Lane.
Madam Chair, I'm going to recuse.
All right, Mr. Pennick.
Good evening. I'm Michael Pennick, and I'm here to request a final approval on a plat on the corner of Friendship and Homing Lane, approximately 20 acres and 4 tracts.
All right. You got something to say, Shelby?
Yes, ma'am, not much. Thank you, Mr. Pennick. This looks familiar, I'm sure. This was previously, this project had obtained preliminary plat approval in February of 2022. They came back again, or I'm sorry, yeah, that's right, 2022, as part of the Prospect and Carbon Apartment Project, and again on October 4th this year. So nothing's changed, with the exception that now you're approving the final plat for 4 lots, not the 2 lots that front on Friendship Lane. Correct.
That are all front on Holman.
With the exception of lot 3, which does have frontage there between lots 1 and 2 on Friendship. Yes, that is correct. So lot 3, lot 4, lot 5, and lot 6.
Okay.
And it is important to note that those lots have a mix of zonings. So you'll notice that their development standards are a little different. But staff has reviewed the plat, and it is in conformity with the zoning requirements as well as section 4 of the subdivision ordinance. And staff recommends approval of the final plat, conditioned upon an extension of the sidewalk along Friendship Lane for lot 6. If you look, lot 6 abuts one of the prospect lots, and that development did put in sidewalks. Staff would like to see that extension through lot 6. I think the recommendation was that they either build it or provide escrow, and I believe Mr. Pennick is agreeable with the escrow. Is that correct? And then, of course, payment of park dedication fees at the full rate of $500 per lot.
Just for my knowledge, where the entrance that goes to lot 3 on Friendship, does that entrance line up with Posto? Garrett, do you remember?
It does not.
It does not?
The Post Oak extension that comes down to Friendship Lane lines up with the easternmost driveway of the apartment.
Okay. Okay.
Any other comments? I'm sorry, Shelby, do you have anything else?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Anybody have comments or questions?
I move that we approve request P 2332, the final plant review of the Prospect Addition Phase 2, located at Friendship Lane and Holman Lane.
Second.
Motion by Tom, second by Jeff. Any other comments?
Do you infer that we accept the staff recommendations?
Infer, yes.
Yes.
All the staff recommendations.
Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Thank you, Mr. Penny.
Thank you.
Well, you need to do something else so we get to see you again. All right, let's go to item 5A, public hearing, request Z 2326 by Morgan de Sanchez to consider a conditional use permit per section 3.110 of the zoning ordinance to operate an STR unoccupied in an R2 zoned area located in the historic overlay district on property located at 110 East Orchard. Oh, there you are. You're ready to go.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. This is my first hearing.
And you had to wait this long for
the
everything.
first one made my palms sweat.
Well, you got to watch
one made me
other
very
people.
hungry.
Why don't you wait till the next item?
Yeah.
Well, thank you all very much. My name is Morgan Miranda Sanchez. I'm here on request Z2326. We're here to seek a conditional use permit for section 3.110 of the zoning ordinance to operate an STR unoccupied in an R2 zoned area located in the historic overlay district. That's at address 110 East Orchard Drive. Today, I'd like to tell you briefly a little bit about our property, our family, and our application. Our property, we bought this vacant lot in the historic district in November 2021. It had no livable structures on it with 2 historic landmarks that we have preserved. Since then, we have built a 1,200 square foot single family home to serve as our family's Sunday house. We built the home with a local general contractor that had knowledge of local zoning, building requirements, and specifically STR property requirements, as well as historic district processes. As a result, we received our certificate of occupancy in April of this past year, and we've spent the balance of 2023 landscaping appropriately for the historic district, furnishing the home, enjoying it, and preparing for this process. A little bit about our family making this request. My husband, Gonzalo, is here with me. Our 2 kids, our sons, Santiago and Paloma, were here, but they're very hangry, hanging out with their aunt right now. We all live, work, and attend school in Austin full-time, but we do come here part-time to enjoy this home and this lovely town. We are experienced and passionate about the hosting and guest experience. And we run a successful STR in Austin, Texas already called the Condesa House. Operating an STR since spring 2021 already in Austin has allowed us to create a revenue generating asset for our family's financial future. It's allowed us to build an exemplary brand, which has 33 5-star only reviews on Airbnb. And this past summer, we secured the cover of HGTV magazine with our property. And we've been able to share our success with our local community in terms of over $6,000 since spring 2021 in STR permit fees and quarterly occupancy taxes filed with Travis County. Our application here is because, given the conditions of our property, it is R2, it is unoccupied, and it is in the historic district. We realize the conditional use permit is our only way to achieve STR operating status within Fredericksburg. This new construction is ideal for current STR needs of today. Our location is appropriate for the STR availability and supply already in existence in Fredericksburg. And we believe our application and supporting materials are comprehensive, but we are here for any questions, and we thank you for your consideration of our request.
All right. Thank you. Good job for your first one.
I am not, but I sell stuff, and whatever has been happening here, there's a lot of parallels to my job. So, selling an idea.
All right. Shelby, you doing this one?
Yes, ma'am. And
Thank
thank you, Morgan. That was a wonderful summary. Staff has been working with Morgan and her family since they purchased the property in 2021. And just to kind of summarize what she said, the applicant purchased a vacant lot in November of 2021, and they did obtain a building permit after they obtained Historic Review Board approval for a development design to build a 2-bedroom unit in May of 2022. In 2022, the applicant submitted an STR unoccupied application while the unit was under construction. Staff informed the applicant of the need of a conditional use permit even at that time in the historic district under the 2022 ordinance, and then we denied the STR unoccupied application in August of 2022. Morgan and her family continued to the construction of the property. Once the property was completed, reached out to staff and said, we're ready for our short-term rental permit, and we directed them through the conditional use permit process. The reason why they are before you tonight, as you're aware, the short-term rental ordinance has changed January 1st, and this is no longer an option under the 2023 ordinance. But Morgan and her family submitted the conditional use permit application under the 2022 ordinance. So this one and then the next application are both reviewed under the 2022 ordinance. With that said, the property is zoned R2 mixed residential and is located in the historic district. The property itself is 12,000 square feet, not the residence property.
1,200.
1,200.
Oh,
It does say 12,000 on there, though.
Oh.
I'm
That's
talking
a
about the property.
Property.
Okay, yes, the property is 12,000 square feet. I thought that was an important distinction when we talk about the use. Occupancy is 2 per bedroom plus 2 guests, so this would allow for an occupancy of 6. The parking, Morgan and her family have provided 5 spaces, although only 2 parking spaces are required. And then at the time that the agenda was published, staff had only received 1 comment, and it wasn't a protest or an approval, it was more a question. And Ms. Collier, I believe that is on page 45. Ms. Kathy Collier had asked if this applicant would be able to develop a short-term rental village, and the answer to that question is no, they can't. They won't be able to do that. This would be the only short-term rental they would be able to have on site unless they chose to live in the property full-time and then obtain a short-term rental accessory, or live in the property full-time or have somebody live in the property full-time and do an STR B&B. But the STR facility use is no longer allowed for this property with this zoning. So staff performed our review based on section 5.40 of the zoning ordinance, the review and evaluation criteria for conditional use permits. I'm sure y'all are very familiar with this section now. Staff put our items in red, or our responses in red to the 13 questions. Rather than going over all of it, I'm just going to pull some of the pertinent details. One of the questions is potentially unfavorable effects or impacts on other existing or permitted uses. As the lot is oversized, it's 12,000 square feet. It can easily accommodate 6 guests. The majority of the properties in this neighborhood are short-term rentals. This property is on the corner of Cora and East Orchard, and there's multiple short-term rentals up and down this stretch of Cora. And determination that the proposed use and site development, together with any modifications, will be compatible with existing or permitted uses. Again, there are 11 properties in this block of Cora, and 6 of them are short-term rentals. The proposed use is compatible with the neighborhood, and staff does not believe that it would be detrimental in any way to the existing uses. With that said, after review of the 13 items found in section 5.40, staff found that the applicant has met or responded to all the requirements. The property is in a neighborhood that contains many short-term rentals. There are, in this block of Cora Street, the 500 block, 11 of the properties. Of the 11 properties, 6 are permitted short-term rentals. So staff recommends approval conditioned upon review and inspection and approval of a short-term permit. In this case, it would be a short-term rental unoccupied permit and payment of applicable fees.
All right. Thank you, Shelby. And we will go into public hearing. Motion by Darrell, second by Tim. No. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Is there anyone here who would like to make comments on this application?
We go out of public hearing back to the regular session. Second.
A motion by Tim, a second by Darrell. Discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Y'all have any comments or questions?
If we decide to approve this, is it going to be necessary for us to make it a condition that they may not do the facility like Ms. Collier, or is it implied? And I assume that the applicant knows that that is an option they do not have.
The 2023 short-term rental ordinance no longer allows STR facility in an R2 district. So that's not an option under that ordinance. Now, I can't speak to legal or anything like that, but if they were to submit under the 2023 ordinance, which we're under today, they don't have that option. That's not allowed.
Okay. All right.
So they can't go back. So next week they couldn't say, okay, we want to
Do a facility
do a
now
facility
under the
now,
2022 ordinance.
because that would be a separate application that would be under the 23 ordinance.
With that said, I move that we approve it as presented with staff recommendation.
Second. Motion by Tim, second by Darrell. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
I like your fence. It's not going to hold many goats, though.
But not chickens.
All right, let's go to item 5B, public hearing request Z 2328 by Juan Rodriguez with, is that Leque? Leak? Engineers LLC to consider the following. A land use change from parks open space to downtown central business district for property located at 620 East San Antonio Street. And B, a zoning change from open space to commercial for property located at 620 East San Antonio Street. So you're on.
We'll try to keep it simple and short. As you stated, my name is Juan Rodriguez with Leak Engineers out of San Antonio, Texas. My client, Baywood Hotels, is in the process of purchasing the property at the address at 620 East San Antonio Street. It's currently zoned, as you stated, open space, and in order to do a hotel, it needs to be rezoned to commercial T2. And so we've been working with Ms. Collier to kind of assist us with the rezoning application, and so we're here to ask for an approval of the rezoning.
All right. All right.
Pretty short.
Thank you, Sheldon.
I'll do this one.
Oh, you're doing that one, Anna.
So the applicant is seeking future land use change from parks open space to downtown central business district, and a zoning change from open space to commercial C2. So this property is 2.5 acres in size and has frontage on East San Antonio Street an obstructed frontage on East Main Street, and the underlying zoning on the property is C2, commercial. However, the property is bisected by the open space zoning as it abuts the creek, and the open space zoning is a zoning category that follows the existing the old FEMA floodplain lines, which does not allow for development. The north side of East San Antonio Street is zoned C2, commercial, with the south side zoned R2, mixed residential. Neighboring uses include short-term facility, McDonald's, Texas Regional Bank, and several STR unoccupied. The change in land use and the zoning would allow the applicant the ability to develop property if proposed development occurs outside the floodplain, which will be verified by the engineering department. As of December 22nd, staff received one letter in support of the request and land use and zoning changes. So staff recommends approval of the future land use and zoning change request. The change in zoning is required to allow the development of the property. The proposed commercial use is consistent with the neighboring properties. And the previous, or I guess current owner, has cleared the land and built up the property to alleviate floodplain concerns. So what we sent out recently is the recent survey. As you know, the site has been cleared and a retaining wall has been built up. So this shows where that retaining wall is. And so staff would actually amend our recommendation to say that the zoning should follow that retaining wall line, so that we keep the open space, I guess, below, and to the east, and allow the C2 to follow the retaining line to the west.
All right, thank you. All right, I will entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
Move to go into regular session, public hearing.
Motion by Daryl, second by Tom. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, is there anyone here who wants to make comments on this application?
Move to go out of public hearing back into regular session.
Second. Motion by Tom and second by Daryl. Any discussion? That was Tim, and sorry, and Daryl. Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Anybody have questions or comments?
I have a question. So right now, after the buildup of the retaining wall and the loamer, none of the property that's going to be developed is considered in the flood. Is that correct, Garrett?
That's correct. And just to clarify, they got a conditional letter of map revision from FEMA. So they haven't actually obtained the loamer yet.
Oh, they haven't.
But that will be a requirement of development of the site.
Okay. And what is there's a retaining wall now that
Correct.
was built by the current owner?
Yes.
The Goodmans. And how high up is that? It was enough to get it out of the floodplain.
Yes, it's very similar to the development to the north of Natural Grocers. Same concept at this site.
Okay. Hopefully not the same result where the wall cracks and falls into the creek.
So maybe not germane to this discussion, but in researching it, if you look, the McDonald's actually was under a lot of public open space. If you look at the lot line, how was that allowed?
Don't know. I'll say that was before our time, but
I'll
use that one.
Not on my watch.
So in looking at, I don't know when this open space zoning was created, and it does follow the old FEMA lines, which we know are outdated. And we've handled these kind of as one-off now that we're doing the comp plan and kind of looking at some tools to actually maybe get some trails and actually have some open space. We would want to analyze all of the currently zoned open space to see if that's appropriate. I mean, open space should be true open space like parkland. And I think this should be more of an overlay instead of a true zoning category. So this, what you see this evening is kind of a cleanup, a one-off, a cleanup. But going forward, we would like to come back with a more holistic approach to looking at all the open space and tying it to the comp plan, which is calling for more trails in open space. So a more holistic approach to that. So tonight's more of a cleanup. Yes, you're right. It looks like the McDonald's also has some open space zoning.
Is there a So is the property line the wall?
Actually, the property line kind of centers on Barron Creek.
Okay.
So there's, I would say about a good 50 feet between the wall and the property line.
So that's in the floodplain right now.
Yes.
Okay. So the other question I have is is there a restriction on how close they can build to the wall?
I think in the design plans, there was a setback, but it was all in the structural design. So they'll have to make sure to stay out of that.
Do we
Don't
have the
recall what
plans
it
for
is.
the hotel yet?
And a zoning change from open space to commercial C2 for the property located at 628 East San Antonio Street.
Motion by Darrell, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tom. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Just to clarify, do you want the same conditions on the zoning as you placed on the land use?
Yes, ma'am, to follow the same line regarding the
Open space and
open space versus
central business.
filled in area.
All right, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. All right, let's go to item 5C, request Z2329 by Adam Montgomery to consider a conditional use permit per section 3.110 of the zoning ordinance to operate a STR unoccupied in an R2 zoned area located in the historic overlay district on property located at 205 West Travis Street. Hi there.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? My name's Adam Montgomery. I actually flew in from Los Angeles this morning to be with you fine folks tonight. Some of you might know my dad, Dan Montgomery. I'm here on his behalf. He, lived here in Fredericksburg for well over 30 years. We moved here in 1989. I want to make it very clear that I'm not some out-of-state developer coming in here trying to, do an Airbnb. This is my childhood home. I love this house. I went by there today, and it's, very emotional for me. My family has spent, so much time there. For those of you who don't know my dad, you probably saw him walking around town quite often. He goes on a 3-mile walk every day. He's 84 years old, and he still does that. My mom passed away in August 2022, and we thought the most natural thing to do would be for him to move out to LA with us to be closer to my family and his only granddaughter. But like I said, this house, many memories over the years. It has the most magical pool in the world. We originally, made the decision to sell it when my dad moved to South Pasadena last year, and it's proven to be fairly difficult. I'll let Shelby, who has guided me through this process and has been so wonderful, helping me out because I had no idea what I was doing. But I'll let her go over the numbers of this. But being at a 205 West Travis, it is very heavily, densely populated with other STRs. I don't know the exact numbers, but I believe almost all adjoining properties, with the exception of one, are currently operating as STRs. Sally Clark, our next door neighbor and longtime friend, I've talked to her about this. She also operates an STR directly across the street. She has given us her blessing. And essentially, I don't want to lose this house. I want to keep it in my family if at all possible. And, my brothers and sisters love coming to Fredericksburg. My family loves coming here. So obviously it would be a vacation home of sorts for us. But the difficulty that we had in making a decision to put it on the market to begin with was a tough decision. But then the difficulty was that no single family seemed to want to purchase it because it's surrounded by STR. So we've already kind of gotten into this catch-22 situation where, we didn't want to sell the house to a developer, and no developer wanted to buy it because it doesn't have the permit. And then, on top of that, no single family wanted to buy it either. So, currently the property is listed at valued at $638 per the county. We have had it listed for $599 for a long time with hardly any interest. So, we feel like The property value has decreased due to the fact that like it is surrounded by STR, so I'm in full support of like the new ordinances, especially in the historic district. However, we think that it makes the most sense for us to be able to use this property as some much needed income for my father in his later years, and I really hope you'll accept this request. My mom also worked at the Nimitz Foundation for many years. My dad was on the State Board of Education for a number of years for this district. So, we are proud members of this community, always will be, even though we now live in California. Fredericksburg will always be very near and dear to my heart. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for flying in for us. All right. Shelby, are you doing this?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Adam. As Adam mentioned, the application is for a conditional use permit to operate an STR unoccupied in an R2 zoned area located within the historic district for property located at 205 West Travis Street. Similar to the conditional use permit we considered previously at 110, this application came in before January 1st, so it's reviewed under the 2022 short-term rental ordinance that allows STR unoccupieds to go through the conditional use permit process in the R2 zone in the historic district. That's why we're considering this evening. The site area of the property is 11,000 square feet, just 11,456 square feet. Not quite as large as the last property, but still substantial, especially in this block of West Travis. The occupancy, if approved as is, would be 2 per bedroom plus 2 guests, so it would allow for an occupancy of 8. There are 4 parking spaces provided, with 3 required. Screening is required for this particular property, and it is provided with a privacy fence. There have been 1 protest and 2 approvals for this application. The 2 approvals that were submitted to staff were emailed to you earlier, but the protest is located in the packet, I believe page 75. In reviewing section 5.40, staff provided some feedback that's found in red. Again, I'll kind of go over just some of the highlights. Potentially unfavorable effects or impacts on other existing or permitted uses on abutting sites. Staff sees no negative impacts. We foresee no negative impacts. The lot is large and can easily accommodate 6 to 8 guests. The properties at the rear of the subject property are all short-term rentals. And I believe the map found on page 71 shows kind of the lot layouts that abut the property. And all of those properties that at the rear of 205 are all short-term rentals.
All those on Schubert?
Yes, ma'am. And then the R2 allows for an STR unoccupied by right. So I am at bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Determination that the proposed use is in accordance with the objectives of the zoning regulations. R2 allows for STR unoccupied by right. Again, this is under the 2022 ordinance. Not in the historic district. And requires a conditional use permit in the historic district in an R2 zone location. And of the 8 conditional use permits that we previously considered under the 2022 ordinance, all 8 have been approved, some on smaller lots than this. So staff finds that it's in accordance with the zoning regulations. Determination that the proposed use and site development with any modifications will be compatible with existing or permitted uses. Staff found that of the 14 properties located within this block of West Travis and West Schubert, 8 are permitted short-term rentals, with another 5 across the street in the 300 block of West Travis, which is right outside the 200-foot zone, but it's a very small block, and I think it's pertinent. So with that, staff found that the applicant has met or responded to all requirements found in section 5.40, which is review and evaluation criteria for conditional use permits. The property is in a neighborhood that contains many short-term rentals, and the property is within walking distance to several commercial businesses and 2 blocks north of Main Street. Staff recommends approval conditioned upon review, inspection, and approval of a short-term rental permit and payment of all applicable fees.
Thank you, Shelby. All right, I'll entertain a motion to go to public hearing.
Move to go in regular session, public hearing.
Motion by Darrell, second.
Second.
Second by Tom. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, anybody have questions or comments?
I move we go out of public hearing back into regular session.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Do y'all have any comments?
I have a question. How many more of these do we have in the queue? Do you have any idea how many more of these are
You'll
waiting?
have one more in February, and then
That's it.
Are they, is it in a similar area? Or
No, sir.
Yeah, we'll do it in February.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I move that we approve this as presented with staff's recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Tim, second by Tom. Any other discussion?
Yes, I'd like to know how you get in the left side of your garage.
Well, there is a very large tree in between. We actually never went into the left side of the garage in 32 years. So I don't.
drive the smallest car in town, so I'm probably able to get in there. I appreciated that little door.
All right, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Adam, as an aside, it's my understanding from Mr. Musselman and from myself, my name is Tim Dooley.
Yes.
I knew your father, and he called me at my home on his cell phone. And I did not return his call, and Mr. Musselman didn't either, because our good friend Mr. McKinney over here says we cannot have any ex parte communication. But you please tell your father that we passed it. I made the motion, and we appreciate the fact, and we're sorry that he moved.
I already told him that he called me this afternoon. He says, "Well, I called Musselman and Dooley, and they didn't call me back." I'm like, "They probably aren't supposed to talk to you."
That's correct. But I'm really glad that he's doing well.
He's doing very well. He loves it.
Nobody else in this room knows this, but Adam and I. Dan, his dad was a tennis coach at St. Edward's way back when.
He was the head basketball coach and athletic director at St. Edward's.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Well, he was there before my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, got all the action items, all the public hearings. We have discussion item number 6A. Changes to the site plan for the hotel, ballroom, retail, and condo at the Y intersection 1149, 1293, 1389, 1413, and 1449 US Highway 87 North since the last P&Z discussion in December. Y'all always seem at the end. You're at the end. Y'all get to stay all night.
Relax.
Yes.
How's everybody doing?
Good. How about you?
I hope everyone had a good Christmas and New Year's. Definitely a busy couple weeks. So I'll get right to it. We were here a month ago, kind of doing the same process. It was our intention to actually try and come here today and see if we could at least take a vote on the previous site plan. We knew leaving the last meeting it was important to have a discussion with TxDOT. We did that, and we can talk a little bit about that. City staff was on the call. Our civil engineer was on the call. We were on the call, so we knew that's an important point. We tried to address all the previous concerns or questions on the previous site plan. And I think what we show you today, we still generally do that. I'm sure there's plenty of discussion to be had, but in between our last meeting and today, we also had an internal stakeholder meeting. We started to really program the hotel footprint, which is the anchor of our potential development, right? And as we're internally programming that, we have boundaries, obviously, because we're using the old HUD footprint for that hotel. And really what we came to the conclusion of is we're shoehorning in a concept into a footprint that doesn't necessarily work for us. We don't feel comfortable coming to you asking for a vote on something that just isn't going to make sense on that old hotel footprint. So what you'll see today is the retail essentially stays the same. I'll kind of take you through the site plan, just kind of give you a rundown of things that we've adjusted. But the hotel and the condo building have flipped. So that's a big, big concept change to the site plan. I think originally we talked with city staff and just general feedback was that maybe the for sale residential does better on that west side of the site, which is what we have today. And then even through some additional research and planning on our end, there is a potential wetland near the hotel that was impeding into the footprint of the previous footprint of the hotel. So with all these things kind of combined, us shoehorning in our programming into the old hotel footprint, the wetland, the best use of the condo and the location, we felt that it was probably best to discuss a new potential site plan, which I'd like to look at with everybody today. And then I'll kind of run through a couple more important items that I want to mention. So let's see.
We have this in our packet.
No, this was just sent this morning.
So Nick, this screen, the commission can't see this on the screen.
Okay.
So this one's working in this.
Okay, that one is.
Yes.
Okay.
So
That's why I was looking at my
If you
book.
wanna speak
Understood.
to- You can kind of speak to what's up here.
Yeah.
They can see that.
I sent a package maybe right in between Christmas and New Year's. Yes. Do they have that? No. Oh, that's perfect. Can we look at that one first? And maybe I can just run them through the general. So I'll just explain as they're pulling that up. If you start on the right hand side of the page, the retail, it stayed the same. Generally stayed the same. We did remove a good amount of square footage from the Plan West portion. If you scroll down, maybe keep going. Right there. That's perfect. Thank you. So in between the Sunday house and the old retail, that's now gone away. There was a retail building that extended Plan South. We've gone away with that, trying to open that retail plaza up to the Sunday house. So that's the only change that took place on the retail from a footprint standpoint. Moving down to the hotel, we're still at from 290 and 87. You still see 3 stories. Now there is a portion of the hotel looking down from 87 that we're going to try and achieve just 2 stories that you see from 87. We're at approximately 195 keys now. We're at 180. We're at 200. We've been kind of back and forth. But I think the total gross square footage of just the footprint of the hotel is around 75,000 square feet. So we tried not to mess with coverages too much. I think you'll see that if you really compare what we presented previously and what you're seeing now. Knowing that height is always an important factor. We still will have, if you're looking from the backside where the elevation changes, we still will have sections that look like and will be 4 stories. But from 87 and 290, the majority of the building, you'll see 2 stories and 3 stories. You won't see anything else. So, and then if you start to consider the setbacks that we have, which we can pull those numbers and provide that information, the setback on the hotel is further off of the road. And we tried to maintain the same distance on the condo. Now the condo still remains 2 stories with below grade parking because we know parking is important. We have to at least achieve 1-to-1. I think we have well over 700 spaces accounted for here. One change that you will see that we would like to look into is on the plan south of the property. We've included a 2-story parking structure, a bi-level parking structure. And I've been around town quite a bit now over the past year. I've seen where this thought came from is directly behind the Albert. They did do kind of a bi-level parking structure where you can go under and park at grade. So we thought that was pretty creative. We have a ton of elevation change here. We haven't fully designed it, but from a concept standpoint and a site plan standpoint, it would be our intent to try and utilize that space as parking because it's tough to use it in any other way. So we're well parked on this site still. A goal of ours is to adjust the parking near the Sunday home. Because I think the site plan you see now, just plan west of the Sunday home, there's still parking there. We want to massage that a little bit more. It's not going to be the best way to interact with the Sunday home with parking in between. But you will see that there's now good connectivity from the hotel directly into the retail. So that was really the main driving factor, is how do we kind of make everything feel as one again? We were becoming really compartmentalized with the condo being right smack dab in the middle and the hotel being kind of isolated and the retail being off on its own. We had all of our stakeholders a couple weeks ago in our office and trying to make the best of this. So let me just go through my notes, make sure I didn't miss anything, and then I'll want to open it up just to comments. One thing also that I just shared with city staff today, we do have a schematic concept for 290 and 87 showing deceleration lanes and then potential striping. Very preliminary, it's not something that we intend to present. We'd have to go through another TIA process, which, stepping back again, we did take a look at all the traffic impacts from the old Seven Hills development, from our original with the multifamily, and then now, which we haven't updated it with the new concept, but we're significantly less traffic. I can even throw out some peak time hours for traffic in the AM and PM. So, and I think you'll see a major difference in the traffic as well. So that's another big thing that we did do and dig into a little bit more was 290 and 87, acceleration, deceleration, turning lanes. Obviously, there was a discussion with city staff, and we presented information to them when the time comes for 290 and 87 intersection, because we know that that's something that needs to be planned as well on the city side. But yeah, I think that really touches all the key points, and would just love to get feedback and continue the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna or Shelby, you'll have comments?
Not really. I mean, like you said, we met with the TxDOT after this meeting, and again, we kind of thought we were going one way, and then so this is a new concept. But I think as far as relocating the condo, probably better for the site. Kind of the reorientation of the hotel kind of breaks up the mass, so it's less on the corridors, but the retail's not really changed, and appreciate, kind of freeing up space around the Klingelhofer house. So, but I mean, we're not talking, density and all those numbers are still pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's, probably near exact the same. We increased the hotel when we first submitted for actual voting. I think we had the hotel at 180 keys. We're at like 195 right now, and we're still at roughly 40 condos. We're definitely at less square footage for the retail for sure.
So on the retail, I know y'all haven't really tackled that yet, but I think there's an opportunity that y'all should take advantage of, and that is to put live above space on your retail.
Okay.
You've got the full 2 stories. You should use them. And offering a retail tenant live over space that their employees can rent, or they can rent and they're right there on site and they don't have to leave, would be hugely beneficial, and it would be a big deal in terms of your leasing attractiveness to be able to have live above space.
Noted. Yeah, we've talked about it, and I think even Anna, way back when, she was like, "Hey, this could be a great idea. You should look into this." Yeah. So we'll have to circle back.
Yeah, because your parking can serve dual purpose. It's you're going to have employee parking anyway. Well,
right.
Then you don't have to add living parking. You've got employee parking already built into your numbers, and that'll take care of the space.
Certainly. Yeah. Thank you for the feedback. We'll look at that.
We need it, and it's a great opportunity for you guys to make it a selling feature.
Yeah.
So you talked about, you've met a lot with TxDOT. Have y'all met with the county any about the, you show traffic over by the condos going on to that Bob Moritz? Bob Moritz is a very narrow little street going into the western edge there. Have y'all talked to them any about?
We haven't had any direct discussions with the county that I can remember. I've pretty much been involved in all the discussions about this project. We could certainly do that. I have personally talked to maybe 3 neighbors back there. So, and they don't really tell me any of their immediate concerns, right? But I would definitely understand if they had some with you having.
Have you driven back there to see that there's also a large RV park that's, yeah.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
there's going to be trailers
Yes,
coming
ma'am.
through there.
Yeah.
Or RVs coming.
Yeah. But we can certainly make that a point to have at least a contact with the county, knowing that that is a county road.
And we can get that set up, Nick.
That would be great.
In a situation like this, typically or historically, they defer to the city, but we definitely want to ask them that question. And I think we've talked about this, but trying to minimize the amount of traffic that's utilizing Bob Moritz.
Yeah.
To the fullest extent we can.
That's the plan. Really, the way we see that surface lot acting is right now. It's obviously very early, but that would be potentially overflow for valet from the hotel, from the ballroom. Any large events that are happening would potentially go there, or employee parking for the hotel. But that still just hasn't been planned yet. We don't see that entrance off of Bob Moritz being a main entry for this site.
So you just used the phrase large events. You're really no longer positioning this as a conference center hotel, are you?
I don't know what the right word to use is. On the past, Seven Hills, they had convention center, and their traffic counts were massive. I mean, peak of over 400 in the morning and in the afternoon, massive. Right now, we see this as heavy meeting space, ballroom. We're still going to look at over 10,000 square feet of meeting space, whether that's ballroom and breakouts or just ballroom. In that packet, it may not reflect that way, but it's our intent to, when we actually program the hotel, this is a first pass, right? We still want to get above that threshold of 10,000 square feet, and we see that these meetings taking place in the ballroom, it will be a ballroom, aren't necessarily convention type, right? Where we're driving 500 vehicles coming to the site at once. We still see it as, obviously a good opportunity to work with the city and bring good events here. We can continue those discussions, but not some monstrosity of a footprint. I think the last footprint was around 40,000 square feet for the ballroom or convention center. We didn't really know what to do with that. It was kind of awkward for us. So there's still some planning to do there.
I would strongly caution, I guess I would say, utilizing the phrase conference center or anything like that, or meeting space for what you're looking at. Basically what you have here in the plan, even if you go to say 10,000 feet, is fairly paltry in the meeting and conference industry. I've been in that quarter of century plus, and I will tell you that most of your competitors, and I just did some research for the last day or two to look at what I would consider conference hotels in Texas in tier 2 or tier 3 cities. Mm-hmm. And this is looking from everywhere from a highly successful Embassy Suites in San Marcos to the Texas A&M Conference Center, which all of those are in much larger cities in Fredericksburg, but properties that are standalone with meeting space, et cetera. You're going to need a minimum of anywhere from 70,000 square feet if you're looking at what the Embassy Suites in San Marcos is doing. Even the Bevy in Bernie, which is only 120 rooms, has 15,000 square feet. I will tell you from having attended a state conference there a few years ago, it was such a poor experience for the event planners that they vowed they would never go back. And this was a very small 120, 150 conference, which I know from many years of being involved with the CVB is a number they would love to have for conferences. So I would strongly advise you not use the phrase conference center. Mm-hmm. It's basically an event space or a function space. It's not a meeting space.
Yeah, understood. I think originally, too, just to give light to that, when the RFP came out from the city, we did look at, quite a bit more square footage for that, when there was some potential for maybe incentives. But we can certainly circle back with kind of all stakeholders on that front and make sure that we're all kind of aligned, right? So thank you.
I mean, not to be negative, but basically what you put on here is just another wedding venue, wedding reception venue.
Understood.
Anybody else have comments? Sorry, do you plan to go, y'all plan to have him meet with Brady at the CVB to get Brady's input on the meeting space?
Yeah, I mean, they've had numerous meetings with Brady and Tim.
Might be good to circle back with Brady again, so that y'all align on what's the target.
Certainly.
I mean, candidly, all of these have a minimum of anywhere from 7, 16, 19 meeting rooms. And that's, including a ballroom, which is substantially larger than what you're looking at. But those are all ones that in the industry, in the state, would be a competitive set. Looking at, cities that don't have commercial air service or a substantial amount of commercial air service into the property, standalone property, which could utilize some overflow rooms for it if you had the meeting space to do it. But honestly, this is not going to contribute anything that would add to midweek business, in my professional opinion.
Understood.
So we have this hotel, we have 3 hotels on Friendship Lane. We have a proposed hotel on East San Antonio. Are those the only hotels we have on the books right now? Oh, and the Albert and the Immigrant. Only one.
We just approved a change in zoning tonight for a property that's going to have a hotel.
That I added that on.
That was in there. That was San Antonio.
San Antonio.
Sorry.
Remodel of the one by the post office.
And the remodel of that one. Well, that's already exists. Okay. Lots of hotels.
You guys have really responded to what we've been asking you to do, and we appreciate that.
Trying.
I will tell you that from probably everybody that's sitting up here is really concerned about traffic.
Yes, sir.
And for me, until I see those drawings that come from TxDOT and from Evan and everybody else with drawings about what it's going to look like, I'm not ready to do anything until it's fixed. Because it's got to be fixed, and it's got to be fixed the best way we can.
So I will say, are we talking about 290-87 intersection, or just in like?
Yes.
Yeah. The information that we gave to TxDOT and city staff, we think there's ways to potentially make improvements there without impacting the property. So it just needs to kind of, I guess, continue to be researched and reviewed. Honestly, I'll be candid. The biggest thing for us is this is a really big project, right? Not only for the city, but for us. And it's going to take some time to design this project. So, we're happy.
As long as you don't feel like we're just trying to slow run you off by all of these changes.
No, I mean,
if you're willing to work with us, I think we're willing to work with you.
Yeah, I think the most important thing though is there's a burn time on this design period, right? And the hotel isn't just a 3-month design. I mean, there's a lot of people involved, even with the condos. The retail will be a little bit quicker, but it takes a good 9 months to put pen to paper after we release our architect and engineers. Sure. So we want to get in a position where we're comfortable with the footprints of these things, and let's get started, and we can still work together. We can still have a partnership and an open dialogue about how are we going to address, traffic concerns and all this kind of stuff. I mean, even today, I'm talking about how are we going to adjust the on-site parking, right? That stuff is stuff that when we do civil construction plans, we'll submit that eventually for approval. But we'd like to get to that point where we can have civil construction plans, but we just can't do that without a good sense in our gut and a good faith vote from you guys that this site plan it's going to work. We just need to, there may be some conditions to that approval. That's what we're really trying to get so that we can get started. Because we want to do this project, and we're committed to that. We're going to be here and take feedback and do what we need to do to make everybody happy. So,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Down. All right. Thanks.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
All right. Let's do the minutes and then we'll go to the director's report.
I don't think we can do the minutes. Mr. Giroux's not here.
Polly, correct?
Oh, there you go. I'm sorry. There's the
Page
backup.
5. You've got 1113 Shaw instead of 113 Shaw. And page 6, Marlowe Wallendorf, that is the correct spelling of her name. I don't remember. She states the second sentence on page 6. Lady, I just wasn't sure.
Wallendorf is correct.
Is her first name spelled Marlowe? Okay, just confirm. That's it.
I move we approve them as presented.
With that correction. Yeah.
That correct.
Tom, was that you second? All right. I have a motion by Tim, second by Tom. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Let's go to 6C, the director's report.
All right, so you'll notice in the end of your packet included some slides that have some updates on some multifamily numbers for you. This is the numbers that that Clinton gives to City Council, so these were accurate 2 weeks ago.
What's changed?
Mostly recently completed. The Algarita is completely open now, both portions of that. So that put 63 units on the market. And we're seeing 1846 luxury apartments in the Woodland Cottages are moving along. They're, I think, ready to open up their clubhouses. Thank you. Clubhouses. So, but all of these are under construction, or they're actually moving and proceeding. So, just to kind of give you guys the most up-to-date numbers on multifamily. And then we also included for you, and then I think Mr. Dooley brought you a laminated version.
No, Shelby did it.
Shelby
for
did.
us. Thank you very
The
much.
2024 calendar for your reference there, including city council meetings. Comp plan. We had a meeting with the CPAC last month, and of the draft, and some pretty significant changes were made. So Half and Associates are making those changes. And so we're looking for a joint meeting with you guys and City Council in February. And I'll tell you, one of the things that we really need to work on, I will say, is the land use, the future land use map. And getting that right. So we're adding some new categories, trying to add some more commercial options and more mixed residential. So that'll be something we really want to work on. So we'll get that out to you ahead of time, but we'll be looking for a joint meeting in mid-February for that. And then once you guys, and that was at that time, we'll also have the draft open for the public comment, and then looking at adoption, a recommendation for adoption from you guys in March. So it's been pushed back a little bit, but we're making changes and trying to get a document that we can all support and get behind. So right now it's a little around 105 pages. So I think the meat of it will probably get down to about 85, and then have quite a bit in the appendix. But trying to make a good, workable document that we will live and breathe and use all the time going forward.
I have a question on the Botanica. Did their site plan or expire? Has it been did they run out their time? Did they come back and ask for a renewal?
They haven't asked for an extension, and I'd have to look and see the expiration date, but if they haven't passed, they're close.
Say that again, please. If they haven't what?
If they haven't expired, they're close. But I'd have to look at that exact date.
Is that really a drop dead date, or are we going to say, oh, well, okay, we'll renew it?
So looking at that section of code, there's conditions. They have to have a building permit issued. I think staff has looked at those in the past and said, okay, well, if they were working through the process, if they had civils approved, if, we work with them as much as we're able.
Okay.
So to answer your question, I mean,
I then answer this if you can. How much have they been working toward that end?
so several months ago, we had several months ago, I would say a year, we had a lot of communication with them, and I haven't heard from anybody in a very long time. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe Evan has more feedback on that, but I haven't heard from anyone in probably a year.
So
nobody's been on the property at all.
is it for sale? Has it been listed for sale?
Not
Do we know?
Not that I've seen.
Okay. So if that's the case and you don't hear anything from them and the drop dead date passes, are they automatically going to be?
Start over?
I mean, if they're not performing and they're giving us no indication that they're interested in doing the project, then their permit expires, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Okay, have we had that in the past?
Yes, sir.
Okay, from other people, of course.
Mhm.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Yeah.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Tim, second by Tom. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let's go home. Thank y'all, everybody.
You can make us do something over. Yes, lawyer. They're all over.